A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another live session of GETI Talk. My name is Shilpi. I'm the relationship manager with the Global Education and Training Institute. Well, before I begin, I would like to wish a very happy Holi to all my Asian brothers and sisters who are across the globe and watching us. Well, for those who do not know about this festival, just to brief about it, Holi is actually marked as the beginning of New Year in the Vedic culture, and it is played with colors and flowers all over India. So it's a festival of colors, sweets, and a lot of festivities. And on this day, we have a special guest from all the way from South Africa. His name is Dr. Ravindra Raina. He is the professor of economics from Northwest University in South Africa. Welcome, Dr. Raina, on this special occasion of Holi on our show. And a very happy Holi to you also. And along with it, thank you for joining in the disruptive education movement started by Dr. Sunita Gandhi. Well, it's been a year since the pandemic has been all across the world. And the most affected stream, if any of the professions or any of the fields that have been drastically affected and has undergone a very positive change is actually the field of education. And so this is what Dr. Rain is going to talk about, how this pandemic, the paradigm shift in education, especially in the developing countries in this pandemic. Thank you once again, Doctor. And please, now the platform is yours. Thank you.
Well, Shilpi, thank you very much for that introduction. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from India, and good morning to different corners of the world. So it's indeed a great pleasure for me to be part of this international webinar series organized by the Global Education Training Institute based in Lucknow, India. I must thank the founder of this organization, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. I also should thank Shilpi Srivastava, the manager and the coordinator of this event. I also would like to thank the rest of the participants from different corners of the globe. Well, the need for the hour and the topic of today is that it is a paradigm shift in education sector, particularly in the developing world, and during this COVID-19 scenario. So, what is happening actually, and what had happened for the past 1 year in terms of the education sector? So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to touch upon a few important salient features of the education. I wanted to give you overall view about global education, and I want to touch some of the aspects of Indian education, maybe South African education, and so on. And then also would like to touch upon the global pandemic, because in the interest of time, we just would like to touch upon some of the very pertinent issues here. We all know that the pandemic has started at Yuan province sometime in December 2019. That's why it's known as COVID, coronavirus disease 2019. And then it is gradually spread across the globe, and close to 200 countries in the world, ladies and gentlemen, that are badly affected or infected by this coronavirus. So particularly, if we look at the countries like, as of today, that is 29th of March 2021, America has got a large number of infected cases, with about 30.3 million people got infected only in America. And if you look at the number of people that are died, over 550,000 people died in America alone. So if you look at the global statistics, ladies and gentlemen, we got more than 127 million people across the world that are infected, and close to 2.8 million people got killed by this virus. So the if you look at the countries in the ranking, global ranking, we have a country like Brazil, which is with about 12 million cases, infected cases, and in about 312,000 people died in Brazil. And India probably was ranking a few weeks ago. It was ranking second country in the world, but now it is a little bit down because of the Brazil infection rates, and also the death rate is much higher than Indian scenario. India probably we got also close to 12 million people infected, and about 160,000 people got killed by this virus. So And then the list goes on, ladies and gentlemen. France and UK and Russia, they're also close to 5 million people got infected in those countries, with more than 100,000 people died. So this is the uh, overall picture about the globe in terms of the coronavirus infections, the pandemic, current pandemic scenario. I would like to touch upon some of the important features here. That pandemic is not new to this world, new to the human beings. Even in dates back, probably we have got we have so many countries across the globe that are been directly or indirectly are being infected by this virus from time to time. Historically, even 3,000, 3,500 years ago, we do experience some of the pandemics, and especially in the year 1346 to 1353, about 7 years period, ladies and gentlemen, there was a disease called the plague, which is also popularly known as Black Death, that has killed probably about 35 to 40% of the population living on this planet at that point of time. So, meaning that about close to 150 to 200 million people died in 1346 to 1353. So, imagine the situation that the population of the world at that time, it's not even half a billion, about 400, 450 million people in 13th century, and majority of the people got killed by that virus, plague disease. And plague, of course, it can be curable now. And so that is what. And thereafter, for the past 700, 800 years, also we have experienced similar scenarios, particularly 100 years back, 1918 to 1920, we got a Spanish flu, which is also banned out similar to this kind of coronavirus, which also infected more than 500 million people across the globe. Out of 500 million people, 50 million people died of the Spanish flu. So that means the killing rate of Spanish flu was 10%, whereas the killing rate of coronavirus is less than 1%. So although it is a bit scary, most of the institutions across the globe that are being closed, particularly the educational institutions that are being shuttered. So the point of the matter is that although we have got different regulations, and maybe WHO, World Health Organization, declared that it is a global pandemic sometime early March 2020, March 12th, they declared that it is one of the dangerous pandemic. We must take care of it. So there are a lot of regulations using the mask and maintaining the social distancing, washing the hands, and also become maybe part of our lives, and using the sanitizers and so on and so forth. So this has become a new normal for us. Ladies and gentlemen, we must remember the point that we have got the abnormality. The coronavirus become created abnormality in our lives. We never ever experienced this kind of life, but we've been experiencing for the past little more than a year. Particularly starting from March, maybe third week of March, India also got introduced lockdown restrictions. South Africa also uh, 27th of March 2020, South Africa also imposed the restrictions. Now, across the globe, there are so many countries that are still under lockdown situation. Even South Africa, India, many states of India, and many states of France, and maybe Germany, and many other countries, Italy, and so on and so forth. They're also putting the restrictions. Now, what is happening with these restrictions here? So the new normal has started because of the abnormal situation that we are living with. The abnormality became a normal phenomena for the past 1 year for us. So we are adopting that abnormality as a normality, and we are living with this abnormal situation. And this is what is known as new normal, ladies and gentlemen. So there are so much probably negative impact that is created across the globe, and the economy performing very, very poorly. For the past 30 to 40 years down the line, we never ever experienced across the globe this much crisis as far as the economy is concerned. Now, if you look at Great Economic Depression, which was started 1929 to 1934, 5 years period, the economy was being tumbled down in USA, in rest of the world. More than 30% of the economy, 30% of the GDP, 30% of unemployment is increased, and so on and so forth. That was probably close to 90 years back. Now, this virus also, country like India, pushed back 23%, and we got a negative economic growth rate. We pushed back to 23, more than 23%. And if you look at the global economic statistics also, according to IMF estimates, we also pushed down to 5.6%. That is the kind of experience that we have. So nonetheless, there are so much probably the economy, the people, and the environment badly hit by this virus, and eventually we can experience particularly the industries and the agriculture sector and the services sector, especially education, tourism is also badly affected. So if you look at the education side of the story, ladies and gentlemen, education in terms of the total number of students and all over the world, if you look at the population of the world today, we got about 7.8 billion people. Out of this 7.8 billion people, the number of students at different levels, maybe from pre-primary to post-graduation and probably PhD level, we got close to 2.2 billion people learning across this globe. So out of this 2.2 billion people, ladies and gentlemen, now how coronavirus is impacted, what is the new paradigm, and what is happening across the globe, we have to understand the dynamics here. If you look at the global level statistics, UNESCO and OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development statistics, and World Bank statistics, and all of them reveal the same thing, that close to 1.7 billion people in this planet got affected in terms of their education. So they are not no longer at the classroom environment. They are sitting in their homes. They couldn't able to target what they wanted to achieve in this particular 1 year period. 2020 academic year is gone for nothing. 2021, we thought that there could be some miracles going to happen, but nothing had happened. We are almost closing and finishing March 2021 without having a radical changes. Although we have got the vaccinations, which was started a few weeks ago in India, in maybe UK and probably South Africa and different corners of the world, we are trying to have that vaccination, but vaccination giving to this 7.8 billion people will be again take years together, ladies and gentlemen. It is not going to be finished in few weeks or few months time. It will take years, number of years actually, in order to vaccinate countries like India, and maybe it takes more than 10 years actually. So this is the scenario we are sitting with. So there are no much significant positive changes occurred, though we have got Serum Institute, which was producing the vaccines for India, and there are also Johnson and Johnson and Pfizer, and there are many other AstraZeneca. There are so many other vaccinations emerged from different countries, but still the vaccination, the number of people that got vaccinated so far for the past 2 months also, it's very, very few. And then now, what is the way forward and how the education has been suffered? As I indicated to you, 2.2 billion students, and out of that, close to more than 1.6, 1.7 billion people got affected by the education level, whether they are master students or bachelor students or primary school students or secondary school students or any other level of students. They are all infected in a sense that they are affected by the virus and without going to the classroom environment. So the online education became an important phenomena nowadays. We never ever heard about Zoom platforms. We never ever, although the Zoom has started about 10, 11 years ago, and then we got the Microsoft Teams, we got the such as the Google Meet, and there are so many other platforms that they try to be developed for the past 1 year in order to accommodate the current scenario. So now the challenge here is that in terms of the education, digital education, online education, that is the way forward. That is the paradigm shift. According to the Indian mythology, we see that Guru Shishya Sambandh, the relationship between the student and the teacher, is very, very strong. And that strong relationship cannot be maintained with this online education, ladies and gentlemen. So now we do not know when we are teaching the class. I was been teaching online for more than a year now, and all the colleagues who are working as teachers, professors in different corners of the world, majority of them also teaching, online courses. But what is the impact of these online courses on the education level? Whether we can able to disseminate the knowledge, whether we can able to transfer the wisdom to our students with this online mode of operation, that is a big question. And that question need to be debated, that question need to be discussed across the globe, and we need to find some concrete solutions. We all know that, ladies and gentlemen, that many developing countries in this world, we got over 200 countries. Out of 200 countries, 3 by 4th of these countries, 75% of the countries, they are developing countries. Within this developing world, the education cannot be penetrated to the people downtrodden through this online method of teaching, because of the fact that majority of the people, they do not have the cell phone access, they do not have the laptop access, they do not have the computer access. Even if they have these things, they do not have a proper, stable, sustainable internet access. And also we do have challenges, particularly the electricity. We got a problem with electricity in majority of the countries, including India. There are power cuts, there are load sheddings across the globe that will interrupt the learning process actually. So that is why the online education, digital education that we see as one of the paradigm shift, one of the panacea for the current problem, but it cannot be a permanent solution for the current problem. I'd like to mention this point in this context, ladies and gentlemen. So there is nothing, when I teach the students face to face, I can look into their eyes. I look into their eyes, and they can also look into my eyes, and we learn a lot from each other. So that is what is missing. We do not know when you are teaching online, when the student is muting himself or herself and also closing the videos, we do not know whether they are sleeping, whether they are eating, or whether they are washing the dishes, or whether they are dancing. We do not know about that. Whether they are listening to us attentively or not, because we do not have a control over it. So, ladies and gentlemen, probably for the past 1 year, I might have given keynote speeches as a resource person, as a chief guest or a guest of honor and special guest and so on to different parts of the world, including Japan, Oman, and Pakistan, Nepal, and Philippines, India, and UK, etc., etc. But out of these 100 conferences that I attended, there are speakers one side, a fellow speakers, and there are also organizers on the other side. I do not remember them. I do not remember them that well, actually. So I attended a conference as a keynote speaker in 2008 in Slovakia. I still remember the colleagues that I met. I attended a lot of conferences in India during 2019 and 2020, in Bhopal to Bhubaneswar, Bhubaneswar to Delhi, and Delhi to Chennai, and Chennai to Mumbai, and so on and so forth. I still remember them very well. Even some of the participants who interacted with me, I remember them. So now that has been missing in this online platform. So the paradigm shift that we obtained and that we've been experiencing for the past 1 year, it is not going to be sustainable in the long run. Although the world has been looking for the distance mode of education, where the distance mode operations, probably the online teaching, online courses, YouTube videos that have been developed by so many experts across the globe. But by listening, we can learn something, there is no doubt. But with the personal interaction, face to face interaction, physical classroom environment, that nobody ever going to replace that one, ladies and gentlemen. So now we look at the global scenario, as I just indicated to you that more than 2.2 billion people as students, and those student population are been drastically affected by this particular virus. If you look at the Indian scenario, we got more than 220 million students. Out of 1.3 billion people in India, we got a large number of students at different capacities, different levels. In Indian scenario, we got more than 1,000 universities in the country. Some of them are private universities, some of them are central universities, some of them are state-owned universities and deemed universities, and so on and so forth. So we got 1,000 universities, and out of this 1,000 universities, ladies and gentlemen, we also got 48, 49,000 colleges. So 48, 49,000 colleges. Some of the colleges are much bigger than many universities across the globe. If you take the average size of the student population in South African universities, they got not more than 30,000 students. There are many universities in South Africa, they got probably 10,000 students or 12,000 students in the whole university, actually. So if you look at that 10, 12,000, there are many colleges in India, they have more than the 10,000 or 20,000, 30,000 population. So if you look at that population size and the different levels of education we are having in India, so the population, all of them, directly or indirectly, they got affected by this corona pandemic. We have institutions such as IITs, Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Management Sciences, Indian Institute of Science. These are the premier institutions of India. Now we consider them, they are the two eyes of India. Now, even those institutions also could not able to offer the online education effectively and efficiently because of the fact that many students, they cannot afford to have all these facilities. So you can imagine the situation in the rural part of India, rural villages, and it could be the worst scenario where even they do not have television sets to listen, where they do not have a proper electricity facilities. So having this kind of situation on the ground, then we cannot able to disseminate the knowledge and the dexterity and the skill that is needed by our students to the rural people, rural students in the country. So the same scenario you can share with Indonesia. I was speaking to Indonesian conferences few occasions last year and this year, and we can understand the same scenario with Philippines, the same scenario with Pakistan, the same scenario with Bangladesh, Nepal, and majority of the countries across the globe, third world countries. So when we have the scenario like this, then the purpose of having the digital online education will be defeated. And we do not have a fruitful interaction with the student and the teacher. So whatever the way that we would like to pass on the knowledge and the wisdom to the students, it is not going to be effective at all. We also remember that, ladies and gentlemen, that a teacher there are four categories of teachers here. A good teacher, an average teacher or a mediocre teacher tells. A good teacher explains, a better teacher demonstrates, and the best teacher inspires. So, on the whole, even these two categories of people, mediocre teachers, average teachers, and the good teachers, what is happening is that they cannot able to teach the students what the students need actually. The teachers are begin to teach what they know, what they are comfortable with. But what the students are required, what skill is needed, we are not able to disseminate that kind of skill, ladies and gentlemen. That is the biggest challenge of this education system. We need to remember that, ladies and gentlemen. So now, if you look at this overall scenario, we got India is the second largest educationally developed country in the world, maybe after China. And if you look at the overall quality of education, then that is another scenario that we need to think and we need to look at. The quality of education, the quality of standards are being deteriorated, and people begin to pay the money and get the degrees. So education is not to have a qualification like PhD degree or a MBBS degree or an engineering degree or a master's degree or MBA degree or a bachelor degree. Ladies and gentlemen, it is more than having a degree, more than having a qualification. It is the kind of kindness, it is the kind of sustainable mindset, sustainable behavior, and the way we treat the other fellow human beings. We need to remember that. We need to respect the other human beings. You may be having a PhD degree, you may be having an MBBS degree, but you don't even know how to treat your patients and fellow human beings. You are not educated person, unfortunately. The definition of education in reality, we need to change. We need to look into that. We need to revisit to this kind of aspects, ladies and gentlemen. So the way we interact with our people, with a lot of wisdom, with a lot of stable character, stable behavior, and you should be kind towards the other human beings when you are speaking. So that has been missing in this education. No matter if somebody studied in Harvard University, Stanford University, or MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and even if somebody got a degree from IIT and IIM, it doesn't mean that they are greater than any other human beings in this world. So we must try to develop Hindu philosophy or Indian philosophy always teaches one thing, that Vasudaika Kutumbam, the whole world population of the 7.8 billion people, they are like one family. If we understand the dynamics, then we must respect each other, we must help each other, we must support each other. So education must teach. These are the fundamentals, these are the fundamental values that we need to teach. We need to disseminate, we need to practice in our real life situation, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a kind of scenario. In the interest of time, I would like to touch upon some of the salient features of African side. Now, Africa, what is happening? So if you look at the global cities, we got 25,000 cities across the globe. America has got more than 3,500 cities, and maybe China has also got good number of cities, and UK also got good number of cities. So across the globe, we got 25,000 cities. But ladies and gentlemen, in African side, we got 1.3 billion people living on this African continent, which is the second largest continent in this world with about 31 million square kilometers land. So you can imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. And of African continent is three times bigger than the European continent. European continent, after all, is little more than 10 million square kilometers. Now, the situation is that all our people, including Indian, Chinese, and other Asians and Africans, they are going to America, they are going to UK, they are going to Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and France, Germany, but there are very few students coming to India. So if you look at historically, India was having the quite good number of educational institutions even during the before Christ, thousands of years ago. Takshashila University and at Ujjaini, and there are so many other universities at Nalanda University. They are the universities that they started thousands of years ago, where in those ancient days, people from other parts of the world, they used to come to India to learn, to study, to obtain the degrees. Because of the fact that India was the richest country in the whole world for more than 1800 years, ladies and gentlemen. Not for 1 year, not for 2 years, not for 100 years. It is for 1,800 years. India was the largest economy in this world, and also the largest contributor to the global economy, with about 40% of the total wealth of the world was coming from only India. Now, from that level, we pushed down from 40% to 28%, and 28 to 25%. Now, today we went down to 3%, ladies and gentlemen. Now, who has taken that kind of prestige that we have? It is none other than the Britishers. Britishers have looted our economy. 45 trillion dollar worth of money has been stolen from our national economy. So the British has taken everything, and some of the corrupt politicians ruling the country ruled before. They also stolen a lot of our wealth and make our countrymen is less educated, less and poor. And if you look at the global statistics, ladies and gentlemen, India is standing. Although we are educationally second largest country in the world, but in terms of the large number of illiterates in this world, we stand number one. We got more than 300 million people got still they are illiterates, ladies and gentlemen. We must be shameful about that. We must think about this kind of scenario. So, in the interest of time, I would like to touch upon the African scenario. That Africa, there are some universities. We got 55 countries in African continent, and few countries they do not even have a single university. You can imagine the situation. Nigeria is a largely populated country with about 220 million people, and which is the sixth or seventh largely populated country in the world. They do not have enough number of universities in the country. In South Africa, we got only 25 universities, 26 universities, public sector universities, and there are about 50 colleges that we have. So we do not have a sufficient number of institutions that can try to provide the education to the students across the country, across the continent, across the globe, etc. So we must think about that. Education has been monopolized. The countries, what are the top 10 countries in terms of education standards? We can count them. As indicated to you, America and maybe Germany, France, Canada, and Australia. So these are the countries that are among the top 10 countries. So this has to be changed. The paradigm need to be shifted. India alone paying more than $5 billion to America by sending their students. So we must think about that. Now, if you look at the overall education system of this world, how many people they could able to afford to have the tertiary education? One has to think about it. The tertiary education, which is an expensive education, as I indicated to you, out of 1.3 billion people in India, more than 300 million people, they are still illiterate completely. And our literacy, although Kerala, state like Kerala, Kottayam, and some of the districts of Kerala, they achieved the 100% literacy, but some of the states, districts in India like Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and maybe Orissa and Andhra Pradesh area, Telangana area, they are not educated that much, ladies and gentlemen. You must remember that. So the literacy levels is less than 70%, even in this 21st century. If you look at the lowest literacy rates in the world, is none other than African countries. You got Burkina Faso, you got Chad, Niger, Mali, Malawi, and Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea. So these are some of the countries they are having the lowest number of literacy rates, less than 30%, ladies and gentlemen. One can imagine the scenario that we talk about education, UNESCO, and there are so many bodies that are being developed, but there are countries they are still having less than 30% literacy rate in this world today. We must think about that. Now, if you look at the higher education side, tertiary education side, what percentage of people are going to the tertiary education, are having a tertiary qualification today? If you look at the globe looks like this, ladies and gentlemen. 29% of Chinese, although Chinese, they may not speak English, they speak Mandarin, but 29% of the Chinese population, they obtain the tertiary qualification. If you take India, though we have got 1,000 universities and about 48, 50,000 colleges and so many other schools, but India is having only 12% tertiary educated people. And America has got only 11%, being the largest economy in the world, which has got about 23 to 24 trillion dollar contribution to the global economy, or 25% of the global income of the world today. They only got 11% tertiary educated people in America. So you take the Japan. Japan was the second largest economy in the world, which used to be for more than 30, 35, 40 years until 2010. Starting from 1978, Japan was the second largest economy just after America. Now look at the Japanese side today, that the tertiary education people, those who got tertiary qualification is only 4%. Germany, France, they're also having about 3 to 4%. Russia, which is the biggest country in the world, which has got 7%. So we need to think about that. The whole world population is having about other 10, 11%. So this is the kind of scenario that we are sitting with. So tertiary education is always far from the majority of the people living on this planet. So the school education, if somebody educated at the school level or the college level, they are the blessed people actually. Historically, if you look at 3,000, 3,500 years ago, the education was confined to only certain sections who are kings, who are priests, not more than anybody else. So there are not even 0.00001% of people, only people can be counted. So particularly for the past 200 years ago, or for the past 200 years, the education has been disseminated to different people in the world. And if you look at the for the past 30 to 40 years, we have experienced that number of institutions are increased tremendously. The people they never in one some of the families they never have had any educated persons. So the educated persons or the number of people, average number of people who are educated is been increased tremendously, particularly for the past 40 to 50 years. Although the education was confined to certain kings and certain people, and so that education has been there was a paradigm shift. Now a common man, a rickshaw puller's son, can become an IAS officer, and a scavenger's son can become a medical doctor, whereas the farmer child can become the director general or a minister. So that is the beauty of education, ladies and gentlemen. There was a paradigm shift. So education is the powerful weapon that we all should respect the education, ladies and gentlemen. If we respect the education, education never deceive us. So with that few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to touch upon the African side. Though Africa, they got large number of out of 180 countries in this world, 25 countries who are sitting with the last at the bottom level of this 180 countries list. The bottom countries are all coming from African continent. Now, how do you expect them to have the kind of facilities, the laptops, the smartphones, computers, internet services, and all other services are very, very far from the reality to these students, ladies and gentlemen. Even in South Africa, particularly for the past 1 year, the government of South Africa is providing the free internet service data or internet data access to majority of the students, those who cannot afford to pay for it. There is a platform called eFundi. eFundi is the platform that we use to share our resources, teaching and learning resources, PowerPoints, and all of the things we use, and we made them available for free to the students. They don't need to have any data to access those kind of websites. So that is the kind of way that Indian government also might have done so much to reach the downtrodden, the rural student of India, but so much needs to be done, ladies and gentlemen. So in the interest of time, I do not know how much time I left with Shilpi. It's 1 second. Yes, in the interest of time, I would like to mention that the education sector in the world is absolutely developed in a fashion where it is unequal. So much inequality has been created in terms of the education. It's not only the economy, we are unequally divided, meaning that there are some rich people and there are very poor people. India is the only country in the world which has got millionaires. And India is the only country which contribute 24-25% of the global poverty of this world. So there is so much dichotomy, so much deviation, so much inequality. The same thing is also spread in the education sector. So education is become like a rich people's resource. A common man is unable to pay for the fees because of the fact that they couldn't able to afford to pay the fees. If you look at the fees that are being charged by some of the private educational institutions to get an MBA degree, there are colleges they are charging between 15 lakh rupees to 30 lakh rupees. Now 30 lakh rupees, who is going to earn in a particular year? There are so many people they cannot able to earn $2 per day, ladies and gentlemen. So majority of Indians they couldn't able to earn $1.25. So if somebody was not able to earn on a sustainable manner about $2, which is about close to 140 rupees or 150 rupees on regular basis, how that person, a common man, can able to pay 15 lakhs to 30 lakhs rupees to admit his child into the MBA program? Or if you look at the medical scenario, That is completely worst, ladies and gentlemen. People are asking 1 crore to 1.5 crore or 2 crore rupees to get the medical admission. So education, that we are trying to divide them, and we are trying to create a division between the rich and the poor, which is not going to be sustainable for us, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to have some kind of backup according to the equality index. If we look at the Gini coefficient index, if we look at where we see the economic equality, India is also trying to be so much unequal society. That's not good for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, we need to provide the education for all our citizens for free. If you look at the education expenditure that India is incurring among the BRICS nations, we got the five BRICS countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. India is spending, according to the latest statistics, India is spending about 2.9% of its GDP on education as an expenditure, whereas South Africa spends about 7%. Now imagine we are spending less than 3%, whereas South Africa spends more than 7%. So we need to look
Um,
at.
Dr.
So
Ravan, I would just like you to please wind
okay,
up the.
I would like to conclude now, Shilpi. So we need to look at the expenditure that we are spending on the education sector. Although India spent very less amount on education, but we have more returns on education. That is also need to be noted here. So in the interest of time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by saying that education is the powerful weapon which has got the strength to make a farmer child as the president of a nation, and a mining worker child as a manager of the mining company. A scavenger child can become a doctor, and a rickshaw puller's child can become an IAS or IPS officer. So that is why we need to believe, we need to respect, we need to applaud, and we need to uphold the education. And uh, so if we do that, then we always can try to move our lifestyle, and in a sense that we can always be developed, and we can always try to contribute something in terms of science and technology, in terms of engineering, in terms of innovation to this globe. And with this few words, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude my presentation. And if you got any question and answers, you are welcome to approach me. Thank you one and all. And thank you, Shilpi, for the opportunity.
Thank you once again, Dr. Ravan. And listening to you, so during this period of the pandemic, especially what all you have been talking about, regarding the education. So, do you see a lot of influx towards Indian universities, like the children who had taken admission in the universities abroad, but then were not able to join? Do you think now people, children will now again have a lot of faith in the Indian universities and stay and look forward to taking admissions here?
Well, that is a very good question, Shilpi, but my answer would be no, because of the fact that although our IITs and IIMs, they maintain certain standards, the standards, even if we get 100% mark out of 100, IITs and IIMs do not provide the opportunity for those students. So those students who could not be successful in getting the admission to IITs and IIMs of India, they are the
Yeah.
one who go to Harvard University and Stanford University, MIT and Yale and so on and so forth. So meaning that the standards of American education, the standard of Indian education, we are much ahead of that kind of institution. But who are ranked in the world? It is Harvard University for more than 20 years down the line. If you look at the global five rankings, five top universities, Harvard is always remained there. MIT is always there. So this is the kind of resentment that Indian students or the parents of India, they developed that. No, I'll send my child, even if they got admission in one of the private institutions, they don't want the child to study there. Although the education standards are much higher in India, but they wanted to send to lower standard educational institution in America or in Australia. Some of the private institutions, they do not have a recognition, they do not have any accreditation, but they are running the institution. They still wanted to send our children to that. So for your question, Shilpi, that the notion the resentment or a kind of feelings that have been developed among our Indian parents, it's not good actually. We need to look at, you try to see what is best that is available within our nation. And then if you are unable to find, then you can think of sending to America, to elsewhere. So therefore, even this pandemic scenario, although many of our students who are admitted in other countries of the world are
Yeah.
studying in India itself, but still the phenomena is not going to be changed after the coronavirus is ended. That's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for taking out time on this day and being with us and giving such an elaborate and useful points. So,
Well, there is so much to talk, Shilpi, but the time is too short. But anyway, next time we can always cover. There's so much information, so much ideas that we need to share on the platform like this. But yeah, anyway, I understand the time constraints. But yes, if there are any other questions from our audience or from anybody else, we can address one or two before we end the session. Thank you.
thank you so much, sir. There are no questions, but people have appreciated your efforts. So, with this, we end the show, and I request my viewers to stay tuned in for today and tomorrow. There are more sessions coming up. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Shilpi.